Production and distribution of City Club Forums on IdeaStream is made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harris and I'm president of the City Club's Board of Directors. I am honored and pleased to introduce today's speaker, Ann Jenkins, Chief Executive Officer of AARP, which I will hereafter refer to as AARP. Ms. Jenkins appears as part of the City Club's Diversity Thought Leadership Series sponsored by KeyBank. As we welcome Ms. Jenkins to the City Club podium, I'm reminded of President Obama's appearance at the City Club of Cleveland in March of 2015. Some of you may remember during the Q&A, the president was asked if there were anything he wished he had done differently. His first response was that he wished he had started dyeing his hair. Of course, many people associate gray hair with wisdom. Others are thankful to have even a single hair on the top of their heads. So, on a serious note, our distinguished speaker is the head of the world's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization. She's committed to changing the way that we think about aging, as she puts it, to disrupt aging. I think you'll hear more about disrupt aging, and I'm going to work in a reference to the fact that this thing's a real hot seller, I understand. Hot on the press and hot selling. Now, disrupting aging includes disrupting negative perceptions associated with aging and embracing the opportunities arising from the ability to live longer and healthier lives. By way of brief background, AARP was founded in 1958 by Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, a retired high school principal. Dr. Andrus had previously established a National Retired Teachers Association to promote her philosophy of productive aging and in response to the need of retired teachers for health insurance. Now, as stated at AARP's website in 1958, at that time, private health insurance was virtually unavailable to older Americans. In fact, it was not until 1965 that the government enacted Medicare, which provides health benefits to persons over age 65. I found that staggering. That was not that long ago when you think about it. Ms. Jenkins joined AARP in 2010 as president of its foundation, where she led the charity's development and social impact initiatives, including Drive to End Hunger, a national effort to help the millions of older Americans who struggle daily with hunger. Prior to leading the foundation, she served as Chief Operating Officer for the Library of Congress, where she was responsible for managing the daily operations of an organization with a staff of 4,000 and a budget in excess of $1 billion. Ms. Jenkins' federal career started at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and she subsequently served in progressively increasing leadership positions in the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Department of Agriculture's Office of Advocacy and Enterprise. She's a native of Mobile, Alabama, and earned her Bachelor of Science degree from Spring Hill College in Mobile. She's a graduate of the Stanford Executive Program offered by Stanford's Graduate School of Business. She has earned way too many awards for me to name them all, but a few of them, she was named one of Washington Life magazine's Power 100 last year, and she received an honorary doctorate in humane letters from Washington College in Maryland. So, ladies and gentlemen, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Ann Jenkins.
Thank you for that introduction, and I also want to thank KeyBank for sponsoring this Thought Leadership Series. And I want to personally acknowledge my dear friend Margot James Copeland, who's the president of KeyBank. Margot's impact can be seen all across this country. She truly leads by example and shows all of us how one person's effort can positively impact the lives of so many. So thank you, Margot and KeyBank. I'm honored today to have this opportunity to share some ideas with you about my new book, Disrupt Aging, A Bold New Path for Living Every Life. Simply put, I want to change the conversation in this country about what it means to grow older. And I can't think of a better place to do that than here at the City Club, the oldest continuously operating free speech forum in the United States, right? We need to change the conversation because of a demographic revolution is occurring in the way we are aging. Here in the U.S., 10,000 people a day are turning 65, a trend that will continue for the next 14 years. Over the next 2 decades, the number of people aged 65 and older will nearly double to more than 72 million, or 1 in 5 Americans. And by 2050, people 60 and older will outnumber children 15 and under for the first time in history. And the fastest growing age group in this country is people over the age of 85, and the second is over the age of 100. Today, because of increased longevity and generally better health, we have opportunities for continued productivity and growth that our parents and generations before us never had. The good news is that the way people are aging is changing, mostly for the better. The bad news is that many of our beliefs and perceptions of aging have not changed, nor have our solutions for supporting people as they age. I wrote Disrupt Aging to change the conversation in this country about what it means to grow older. It's not about aging, it's about living. And I want people to have the opportunity to embrace aging as something to look forward to, not something to fear, to see this as a period of growth, not decline, to recognize the opportunities, not just the challenges, and most importantly, to see themselves and others as contributors to society, not burdens. Our ability to live longer, healthier, more productive lives is one of mankind's greatest accomplishments, yet we don't see it that way. We often view it as a problem rather than an accomplishment. Andy Rooney said it well, the idea of living a long life appeals to everyone, but the idea of getting older doesn't appeal to anyone. The negative stereotypes of aging are so ingrained in our psyche, they're difficult to overcome, and most of us don't even try. We either just accept the old stereotypes and live out the negative images of aging, or deny that we're aging at all and fight it with every fiber of our being, and in some cases, every dollar in our bank account, our key bank account, right? If you go to the Google search bar and you type in, "I lie about blank," the first word that pops up is age. We are a society obsessed with age. I always thought comedian Larry Miller described it best. He said it like this: do you realize that the only time in our lives when we like getting old is when we're kids? If you're less than 10 years old, you're so excited about aging, you think about it in terms of fractions. How old are you? I'm 4.5. You're never 36.5. And going on 5. See, that's key here, going on. You're so excited about getting older, you're going on. You get into your teens and now you're so thrilled you jump to whole numbers. How old are you? I'm gonna be 16. I'm 12, but I'm gonna be 16. Then the highlight of the experience, you become 21. See, even the word become sounds wonderful. It's theatrical, it's magical. You become 21. But that's as good as it gets. It all changes after that. You're 4.5, yes. You're going on 16, sure. You become 21, okay, but then you turn 30. Whoa, what happened there? You turned. It sounds like bad milk. He turned 30. We had to throw him out. Not so much fun anymore, is it? Now it gets ugly. You become 21, you turn 30, then you're pushing 40. Stay over there, 40, I'm pushing back. But it doesn't stop there. You become 21, you turn 30, you're pushing 40, and you reach 50. Now my dreams are gone. But now it's going fast. You become 21, you turn 30, you're pushing 40, you reach 50, and you hit 60, and you can't stop. You become 21, you turn 30, you're pushing 40, you reach 50, you hit 60, and you make it to 70. So I didn't think I was going to make it. After that, it's a day by day. Okay? You become tired. You hit 4:30. You're in your 90s and you start going backwards. I was just 92. But a strange thing happens, folks. If you can make it to 100, you become a little kid again. I'm 104 and a half, right? We laugh because what Larry Miller was talking about is so familiar to us. It's ingrained in our culture. We've all seen those TV and magazine ads that 50 is the new 30 or 60 is the new 40. And while that might sound like a nice sentiment, as someone over 50, I don't agree at all. 50 is the new 50, and I, for one, like what it looks like. We're not becoming younger as we get older. We can't, no matter how much we may try. Let's define what it means to be our age. I don't want to be 30 again. Sure, at times I may want to look like I'm 30 or feel like I'm 30, but I've benefited immensely from the experiences and wisdom these years have brought me, and I am indeed a more purposeful person for it. People 50 and older today face distinct challenges and have different goals than people in their 30s and 40s. We're at a different place in our lives, and we're motivated by different things. Because our life experiences, we see the world through a lens shaped by experiencing the ups and downs of life, by the wisdom gained from those experiences, and by the comfort that comes from having a better understanding of who we are as individuals and what we want out of life. It's not our own aging we need to fight against. It's the ageist attitudes and perceptions that permeates our society, which play such a huge role in shaping our culture. It's one thing to have a sense of humor about our own aging, but it's quite another to believe the myths and the stereotypes, and yet worse, to start living them. Today, it is socially unacceptable to ignore, ridicule, stereotype someone based on their gender, race, or sexual orientation. So why is it still acceptable to do this to people based on their age? Aging is not a problem any more than living is. It's a human experience. It's a natural part of life. If you think about it, many of the issues we face as we grow older have little to do with age or youth. They evolve around life experiences, and our life experiences at 50, 60, and 70 are much different than they were at 20, 30, and 40, and that's the way it should be. Experience matters. It has value, and it helps define who we are and the contributions we make to society at any age. Muhammad Ali once said that people who see life the same way at 50 as they did when they were 20 have wasted 30 years of their life. In today's world, we might add that people who see life at 80 the same way they did at 50 have also wasted 50 years. Now, I won't pretend that we aren't affected by the aging process. We are. But it's time we put aging in the proper perspective. We are moving along life's continuum. We can't go back or stay where we were, even if we wanted to, and most of us don't want to. But we can't allow society, whether it be the media, advertisers, or popular culture, to delude us into thinking we can or should want to stay young. That leads to a sense of self-denial about who we are and where we are in life, and ultimately a feeling of despair and hopelessness. If staying forever young, as the song says, is our goal in life, we will never achieve it, no matter how many plastic surgeries we have and how much moisturizers we buy, age-defying makeup we use, or vitamin supplements we take. Staying vital, on the other hand, is something we can all achieve. In fact, more and more of us are achieving it every day. My years at AARP have confirmed for me that a growing number of people 50 and older are ready to change the conversation about what it means to be older. We like where we are. We're looking forward to the years ahead. We're not looking back longingly for days gone by. We are connecting with more people in more meaningful ways through technologies. We're committed to both our families and energized by our work. We don't have to make a choice. We can and have both. We are caregivers, whether as adult children caring for older parents, parents taking care of children, or as grandparents taking care of grandkids, or some combination of all of the above. We are volunteers and philanthropists. We are leaders in our communities, supporters of our churches, helping hands to our friends and our neighbors. We are a generation of makers and doers who have a desire to continue exploring our possibilities and to celebrate discovery over decline. We seek out and grab hold of them when we find them. People 50 and older are still living in ways that reflect the attitudes, the activisms, and the aspirations of a boomer generation. That optimism, that desire to live life on our own terms, to make a difference, to change the world is very real. It confirms my belief that no one's possibilities should be limited by their age and that age and experience have value. But I also know that people face real challenges every day. Many people can't meet their basic needs of health, financial, caring for themselves and their families. They don't want to be limited or defeated by these challenges. They want to win back their opportunities. We need to disrupt aging to help people confront their challenges and embrace their opportunities to the fullest extent possible. That requires changing the way we talk about aging from something to fear to something to look forward to. This change is long overdue. We change the conversation and we change the reality. To start, there are 3 areas where change is most needed for individuals and in our society. I refer to them as health, wealth, and self. First, we need to focus on physical and mental fitness fitness instead of diminishment, on preventing disease and improving well-being instead of just treating our ailments. We need to help people feel empowered to become active partners in their health care instead of dependent patients. Second, we also need to understand that it's about having the financial resources so that you don't outlive your money. An active and engaged, employed older population has the potential to be more of an economic boom than a social challenge. The growing number of older people is not a drain on society, but a key driver of economic growth, innovation, and a whole new value creation. Many corporations, entrepreneurs, and small businesses are finally beginning to realize this. Third, we must change the way we view ourselves, from aging as decline to aging as continuous growth. Many older people feel cast aside. It's important that they develop a sense of purpose and positive self-image. The goal is to gain confidence in navigating life transitions and seeing ourselves as integral parts of society rather than being isolated from society. I wrote Disrupt Aging to help us accomplish these goals. By focusing on health, wealth, and self, Disrupt Aging will begin to alter the mindset around aging. 3 themes run through this Disrupt Aging discussion. 1, we can't do this alone. We have to bring all of society with us. There is a public role for government at all levels, a private role for businesses and organizations, and a personal role and responsibility for each of us. 2, innovation, not just in terms of products and services, but also in our social structures and programs, is key to both individuals and society's efforts to disrupt aging. And 3, disrupt aging is not just about people 50 and older. It affects people of all generations, and people of all generations need to get involved to make this change happen. Fortunately, the movement has already begun. And as boomers move into their 50s, 60s, and now, beginning this year, in their 70s, they are disrupting aging every day, just as they have done every other phase of our lives. Millennials are also disrupt aging by the way they're demanding work-life balance in their jobs and how they're showing us the benefits of a shared economic model and shared communities. I believe we can create a society where all people can grow older, knowing they have access to care, information, and services they need to lead healthier lives with independence and dignity, where they have the financial resources and opportunities to match their longer life expectancies, and where we are all seen as an integral and inspirational asset to society. Maya Angelou once said that at 50, each of us finally becomes the person we've always wanted to be. I think that's true. I believe that age and experience can expand the possibilities in life for every member of society. When we disrupt aging and embrace it as part of a life to look forward to, we begin to discover the real possibilities of living the life we've always wanted. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this thought. On January 6, 1941, Franklin Delano Roosevelt stood before a joint session of Congress to deliver his annual State of the Union address. In that speech, Roosevelt argued for an end to the isolationist policies that grew out of World War I and offered a new ideology based on 4 freedoms: the freedom of speech, the freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. Roosevelt's 4 freedoms became a rallying cry to garner public support for America's involvement in World War II. They resonated with the American people as a statement of the country's underlying values, and to this day, Roosevelt's 4 freedoms still ring true as the basic values that defines American examples of American exceptionalism. Indeed, this forum is a living testament to the core democratic values of free speech. In much the same way as Roosevelt's 4 freedoms inspired America to wake up and realize what was happening in the world and to act, I've identified the 4 freedoms of aging that will define a new vision for living and aging in America and inspire all of us to disrupt aging, making that vision a reality. First, the freedom to choose how and where you want to age. When it comes to aging, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. If you want to follow a traditional path to retirement, you should be able to do that. If you want an active, engaged life, you should have options to pursue that as well. Whether you want to continue living in your own home as you get older, move to a retirement community, or live in an institutional setting, those options should be available for you to choose. It's all about having the options available that allow you to choose how you want to live and age. Second, the freedom to earn. A key part of retirement model that most of us have grown up with is the freedom from work. Today, a key part of extended middle age is the freedom to work. Many of us want and need to continue earning a living and are searching for ways to make a difference in society through the work that we do. This requires reimagining work and breaking down social and institutional barriers that stand in the way. Third, the freedom to learn. Our world is changing so fast. New technologies, new ways of communicating with each other, new ways of receiving and processing information, it's hard to keep up with. If we want to stay engaged, involved, and productive during our extended middle age and beyond, we need to keep learning. If we want to continue working, we need to keep learning in order to keep our job skills up to date. We need to keep learning to avoid isolation. We need to keep learning for our own personal fulfillment and simply to enjoy life. But let's face it, the opportunities for us to keep learning diminishes as we get older. In many cases, they're not just there. We are disrupting aging. We will break down the barriers and create new opportunities to learn as we get older. And fourth, the freedom to pursue happiness by discovering and fulfilling your purpose in life. This is what it's really all about. Our longer lives gives us an extraordinary opportunity to become the person we've always wanted to be. No longer burdened by the many day-to-day stresses that consume our lives, we are building our careers and raising our kids. Many of us are using these extended middle age to turn inward and focus on finding and fulfilling our purpose in life. We have the power to reimagine our lives, to change the course and discover new ways to find fulfillment. Civil rights leader A. Philip Randolph keenly observed that freedom is never given, it is won. So if we're going to win at attaining aging's 4 freedoms, we have to create society together where we have access to care, information, and services we need to lead healthier lives with independence and dignity, where we have the financial resources and opportunities to match our longer lifespans, and where we are seen as an integral and inspirational asset to society. Winning these freedoms begins with each of us. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines and wait for someone else to win these freedoms for us. We have to do it ourselves. It's time to tell our stories of what we believe and what we can do. So I ask each of you, in conversations with your family and friends, what beliefs will you challenge? In your life and in your work, what solutions will you spark? In everything that you do, think about what new possibilities you can create for yourself and for others. What will each of you do to disrupt aging? Disrupt Aging is a rallying cry to create a new vision of living and aging in the 21st century. Our new vision is of a world in which aging is not about decline, it's about growth. It doesn't present only challenges, it creates new opportunities. And older people are not burdens, they're contributors. When we disrupt aging and embrace it as something to look forward to, instead of something to fear, when we begin to discover the real possibilities for becoming the person we've always wanted to be and building a society where all people are valued for who they are, not judged by how old they are. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are enjoying a Friday forum featuring Ann Jenkins, Chief Executive Officer of AARP. We'll return to Ms. Jenkins in a moment for our City Club question and answer period. One of the special things about this 103 and running, and young, by the way, I want to emphasize young, organization. Now, we welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, those of you joining via our radio broadcast, webcast, or our new live simulcast at the Parmer Snow branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. If you would like to tweet a question, further evidence of our youthfulness, please tweet it at the City Club, and our staff will try to work it into the program. We encourage you to keep your questions brief and to the point so we can get as many in as possible during the remaining program. Now, we've got 2 people holding microphones, Stephanie Jansky, our City Club Programming Director, and Content Associate Teddy Eisenberg. First question, please.
Let me first say, Paul, it's not about being young, it's about owning your age and being comfortable with what age you are. Yes.
I congratulate you on the infectious quality of your enthusiasm. It's really quite wonderful to be around. In the spirit of what you've suggested, doing well as you get older, things that are possible because of your age and experience and wisdom, I ask you to comment on older people as a voting bloc. Historically, I think they have been viewed as parochial, far more interested in issues that are directly valuable to them, and yet really they may become, particularly if it's getting to be a third of the population over 65, I think you described, a voting bloc that thinks broadly, cares about environment, cares about young children, cares about midlife crises, it cares about everybody. Do you think that's something we can hope for?
Let me first reiterate that AARP is a nonpartisan organization. However, I would say to you that the importance of the 50-plus vote, particularly in the upcoming elections, for anyone who is serious about being president is critical. We know that in the last election 2 years ago, that every person who ran for office, with the exception of 2 candidates at the senatorial level and congressional level, carried the 50-plus vote. We vote in numbers. We believe very deeply in the issues that we care about. And I would say that we certainly expect that our AARP members and non-AARP members who are 50 and older will be at the polls for the next election.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, yes.
They go side to side.
Okay.
First, based on your financial security issue, I have a question to ask you.
Sure.
Is AARP working to eliminate the 1983 Reagan windfall elimination provisions that affect me as a public employee and also affects my mother, who is 92, who worked during World War II, is a student nurse, nights in a hospital, ran a floor, and worked as a school nurse for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. And also my Medicare direct pay went up 16%. And my wife's, she hadn't collected Social Security, so her Medicare Part B went up 16%. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I can't speak directly to that particular provision, but I will tell you that AARP is fighting every day at the state level and the national level around the issues of financial security, particularly the high cost of increases in Medicare. Just yesterday, we were on the Hill working on the fiduciary rule that that protects consumers from getting financial information from their investment advisors that are in the best interest of individuals rather than in the best interest of the particular people providing the financial advice. This is critical. So many of people in this country who depend on Social Security and Medicare and have limited incomes need to make sure that we are keeping the costs down on all of these different provisions. And so I can tell you that it is top of mind every day as we're doing our work on the Hill.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jenkins, and thank you for coming to Cleveland and to the City Club. So my question is about the relationship between seniors and public policy makers. The first part of the question is, could you describe the impact of the Older Americans Act and the recent reauthorization, what the impact will be on local communities? And then the second is, when public policymakers create public policy, one of the things that's interesting to me is to see the study on like early childhood issues, and I totally respect that and understand that. I'd like for you to kind of talk about, are there communities that are doing a great job, what I call generational diversity, dealing with issues that cut across generational lines that create a large community benefit? Thank you.
First, on the Older Americans Act, we are so pleased that the Senate saw fit to pass the Older Americans Act. The House passed it a couple weeks ago, and so we are urging the President to sign the Older Americans Act and put that back in current form. So many of us, my colleague Jim Furman here with me today, depend on the Older Americans Act to carry out the funding that provides access to programs and services in communities all over the country, and we would expect that the President would sign that very soon, and we're very, very grateful. Disappointed that it took so long, but very grateful that we finally got the Older Americans Act passed. On the second question about building intergenerational communities, I think particularly around disrupt aging, we're certainly trying to make sure that this conversation is ageless. It's not just about people who are 50 and older. We need to make sure that we are addressing this issue of age discrimination for the young as well as for the old. And we've seen a number of communities really addressing those issues in the way they're building out communities, livable communities. We recently launched the Livability Index, where you can actually go into the AARP.org website, type in your zip code, and see what your livability index rating is for your particular community. There is a series of, I think, 64 factors that deals with transportation, access to medical care and health, jobs creation, and that really brings communities together, both the young and the old. And I think that particularly as we see so many people turning age 65 and going through this aging process, and the fact that so many of our young people need additional assistance in housing, in bringing down their cost for college education and those kind of things, that you're going to see groups of people teaming together on how do they create communities that make living easier for every age as they live. So thank you for asking that.
Good afternoon. I work with people with disabilities, and the reality is that with aging comes increased levels of disability. And you mentioned about housing choice and be able to stay in your home, and that requires housing with accessibility features. What is AARP doing to increase the accessible housing stock?
Well, we're certainly doing a lot with the Americans with Disabilities communities, particularly as it relates to work at our state level all across this country. When we talked about access to safe streets, this is going back to the intergenerational aspect of it. So important that we address the issues for our community members who have disabilities. But our biggest partner in some of those efforts were mothers with young strollers, so that when we were changing sidewalks and changing access to buildings and making it easier for those in the disability community to have access to the places they needed to go, it was an intergenerational approach that I like to say what was good for the old was also good for the young to be able to do that. But we know that we should be trying to dismiss barriers wherever they exist, particularly for those in the disabled community. And they certainly have been a very strong voice in Washington, and I know all across the states, of something that we really need to focus on and keep key, particularly as people choose how they want to live and how they want to age, whether it be in their own home and having access to that kind of resources and services that they need every day.
Age is often a factor of perception, and government policy has a lot to do with how we view people as aged. And one of the, if not the principal government policy that says you're old is Social Security, which says at 65, you're old. You're on, should be able to take full retirement. Social Security came into being in, 1936, when the life expectancy in the United States was about age 68. Today it's over 78. Is there any possibility that you can see that the age of full retirement will be increased?
Good question. Just last year, we celebrated the 80th anniversary of Social Security and Medicare. And you are absolutely correct that I think that the average life expectancy when Social Security and Medicare was put in place was 68. And if you think about the fact that the average life expectancy now, I think, is 78, but most people who live to be 65 in good health is expected to live to be 85. And so we absolutely have to make sure that these programs of Social Security and Medicare are here, not only for our generation, but for future generations, and that they're adequate. And I think adequate is the important part. AARP launched a couple months ago a campaign that we call Take a Stand, to ask every person running for president to tell us what their plan was to make sure Social Security was here and adequate for the future. And so we are actively engaged in that in our polls with our members. They tell us that that is one of the top issues that they want AARP to be out there fighting for. So hopefully in the Cleveland area, you've seen some of those campaigns on television, radio, and with our AARP state work. It is top of mind and critical. So many millions, tens of millions of people depend solely on Social Security for their financial resources in the future, and something that we feel very strongly about. So absolutely, Social Security and the importance of it. How that actually comes out, I think, depends on who the president is, who's in the Congress, and for all of us out here in the advocacy groups to really trying to make sure that it's not just here, but it's adequate for the future needs and the way people are aging and living in this country, and the fact that they're going to live another 10, 20 years beyond life expectancy from years ago. So thank you for asking.
Twitter, and
Okay.
this tweeter in particular would like to know, what is the best way to raise awareness about shifting the view of older people from contributors rather than a drag on society?
I would say the best way is for each individual to, as I said, own their own age and do it every day. I can tell you that many of us, myself included, if I'm not watching, will say something that might be considered ageist as we talk about, is that an appropriate thing for somebody to wear? Or, just little comments that people would say. And so I always say it's the 3 Ps, that we need to take a personal responsibility, that the private sector has to have and share some responsibility, and the public sector at the state and national level all need to take this issue on. So it's us every day calling these things out, not in a hateful way, but absolutely calling it out when it happens so that people are conscious of it.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for coming to Cleveland. I found your presentation to be very enlightful, especially since last year I became a proud card-carrying Medicare beneficiary.
Great.
Based on my age. My question is, one of the elements that you suggested that would improve outcomes as we age is wealth development and having enough money to last. Yet we know that in many of the communities and individuals that we work with, that there is very little or no opportunity based on the social determinants that they have been faced with throughout their life for them to reach that ability. What will AARP do? Because you have many resources and offer many benefits. What will AARP do to help these communities to be a viable presence in these communities so that these individuals will be able to benefit from some of the resources and benefits offered by your organization? And one of the things that I know a number of us in Cleveland has suggested is that perhaps the membership fee can be free for a population group that cannot, even with it being as low as it is, can't afford to maintain a membership. So that might help.
Okay. Thank you for your question. I like to say that you are never too old to start saving, yet we know that we need to start saving sooner, regardless of how small that amount is, that the compounded interest in financial building of that wealth is so critical. I will also draw you back to that freedom to earn. So many of our folks who are 50 and older are working in that shared community or that shared business model, whether it be Airbnb or one of the travel sites of Uber or those kind of things. Many people, the fastest growing group of small businesses development are people over the age of 50, and women are even higher in developing small businesses. And we see so many people across the country getting engaged in that. I will tell you that AARP is engaged not only as our C4 AARP organization, but the work of the AARP Foundation is deeply involved in communities all across this country on employment programs. We are the largest partner with the Department of Labor of training people over the age of 50 in job placement and training. Last year, I think it was over 10,000 people that we trained and put in job sharing roles through our senior employment program across this country. We also have a number of programs where people can learn how to manage their income regardless of how small it is. But make no mistake about it, it is difficult to live if you're only depending on Social Security. And we have to make sure that we are addressing the needs and freeing up the possibilities so people who need to work can continue to work and creating real opportunities for that. I will also say AARP's membership is $16 a year. It costs AARP 3 to 4 times that to be able to produce that, but you can always go on AARP.org, and everything available on that website is free information and access to it so that anyone, regardless of their age, can have access to all of the financial tools, the calculators regarding your financial, your personal financial and Social Security as well. So, but thank you for asking that. Today they can't, but I will bring that suggestion back. How about that?
Hi, this also has to do with employment. As we saw in the video, which was fabulous, that there comes a time when in an institution or in a company, all of a sudden there will be certain layoffs. And I know of one where there were 2 that were under 40, but the other 25 were over 40. And yet the choice was, if you wanted to fight it, you could not take any severance pay or anything. Your options were either go without money to fight it or get money and leave it alone. Do you have any ideas as far as how people who are faced with age discrimination and unlawfully lose their jobs, how they can fight it without then also becoming labeled that they're troublemakers?
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly think that it's important that we fight age discrimination, particularly in the workplace. We have a team with AARP litigation that actually looks at that across the country, but also in each one of your states, and I'm not sure what it's called here in Ohio, has not AARP, but litigation experts who do pro bono work. But absolutely, you should be getting your counsel where you see fit to be able to document your case and be able to challenge those efforts. And if there's a way that AARP can be supportive, we'd be more than happy to. I do want to go back and say one of the other things that I would like to mention. AARP runs a free tax service for people over the age of 50. It's called AARP Tax Aid. Last year we did 2.6 million tax returns for free for people who are over the age of 50, low to moderate income people. We're the 4th largest tax preparer in the country behind H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, and then it's AARP Foundation, and the amount in the millions, the hundreds of millions of dollars that we help citizens get back from the IRS with a paid staff of 13 people and about 40,000 volunteers who do this work. So I do want to say that.
Cleveland. I am here for several reasons. One, this is my first time attending the City Club of Cleveland, so thank you for welcoming me here. I want to say that I'm also a new member to the AARP. I just recently joined. I know several of you are probably wondering what. I get that a lot. I am also a CEO in Cleveland of 3 businesses. I started up a staffing agency of 16 years. It's in manufacturing, skilled trades, and engineering. I'm here because I see a lot of changes in the manufacturing industry. I also started up another business in 2013 which is a project of 8 projects. And those projects include a board game. It's a patent pending board game right now. I came here hoping to find and seek mature people like yourselves here, that would be interested in being a part of our focus group. I am instilled into striving this way and looking for partners to help us manufacture this board game in Cleveland. I have a lot of manufacturing clients nationwide. I would like to change Cleveland. I'd like to be a part of that. I would like all the support from those that are here. So my question is, first, I guess I want to say I compliment you for changing the way that you've changed the diversity of the mature workers. And as a staffing agency, I would like to say that I would like to look for other people that are mature workers, and if I can contribute any help or assistance to the AARP, I would like to do that. And my question is, what do you advise, or how do you advise that I focus on promoting mature workers in the workplace?
Okay. What I would do is I would direct you. I know our AARP state director is here. I'll have you connect with her, and I am sure those folks at the club here will also be involved in what's going on here in Cleveland. I can't say I can speak directly to that. Great.
Joanne, thank you so much for joining us at the City Club today, and congratulations also on the success of your book, which Amazon informs me is a #1 bestseller. Well done. I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit more about your book and to tell some of the stories from your book. And I guess the question I have is, there's such an obvious benefit from the point of view that you raise. And I'd like to know a little bit more about what are the real institutional obstacles to realizing your vision.
Mm-hmm. So let me just say that there have been many people from different organizations working on this issue of how do we change the conversation or change the perception of aging in this country for years. And I think that the demographic shifts that are occurring in this country, the increased longevity because of medical science, brings it to an opportune time for us as a country to really look at these issues and think seriously about what it is we need to do. People 50 and older account for over $7.1 trillion in economic activity on an annual basis. And I often say, where else but Washington would that be a problem rather than a solution? But we need to get the private sector engaged in developing products and solutions for people as they age, rather than people as they age adapting to the products that are on the market. And so a big push for AARP and a number of the aging organizations is really trying to work, particularly with the technology industry and the manufacturing industry, on developing products and services that not only address the needs of the 50 plus, but also address the needs of the millennials. So that we know that if you develop a product that's just for the old, no one will buy it. And so we need to make sure that we're creating and addressing products and services that people need to be able to live in a more meaningful way that also addresses the needs of those who are younger than people who are 50 and older. We absolutely need to get our state legislatures and our national politicians to focus on Social Security and Medicare to make sure that it's there for future generations for the next 80 years. And I can't stress enough, and that it's adequate, that fixing these programs and not being adequate is not the right solution. So the book really is, we've been very focused very intently on not making it a how-to book, but really giving people the options for them to decide how they want to live, how they want to spend this extra 20 or 30 years of their lives, and that they find real meaning and purpose in what it is they're doing. I've used a number of examples of people that I've met around the country in the book that sort of tells their story. I can tell you most of the people that I engage and talk with every day say, that's exactly how I feel. I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, I'm in my 70s, I'm still working. I feel good about what I'm doing. And how can we make sure and we change this conversation so that we don't see discrimination in the workplace, that we feel comfortable with our abilities, that we're teaming young and the old so that they're working together in teams, just like we used to do in the 70s and 80s when there was this recognition of what will diversity do when you bring it into the workplace. We find better solutions when we have diversity of age, diversity of race and gender in the workplace as we think about solutions that help us all live better. So, great.
We're going to take our final question from Twitter. Catherine would like to know what role AARP can play in advancing transit choices for the older populations.
I'm sorry, I missed transit. So I will take you back to the work that I'm most familiar with the AARP Foundation. Our foundation is focused on hunger, housing, income, and isolation, but the piece that underpins all of that is transportation. If you are not in a community where there is adequate access to transformation, you can't get to work. You're isolated. The community is not considered livable, and so that is a very key part to getting state, particularly at the state and local level, actions in your local communities that address transportation needs so that people have access to adequate transportation services. So a key part of creating those livable communities so that everybody can live in their community, whether they have access to an automobile or Uber or Lyft or any of those other kind of services. Great.
Well, today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been enjoying a Friday forum featuring Ann Jenkins, Chief Executive Officer of AARP. Ms. Jenkins appears as part of our Diversity Thought Leadership Series sponsored by KeyBank. Thank you, Margot Copeland and KeyBank. Our community partners are the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging and the Council on Older Persons. Thank you as well. And special thanks to today's table sponsors, AARP Ohio and Judson Services, Inc. Our hospitality partner is a Metropolitan at the 9 Hotel, and we thank all of you. We thank you for attending today. That's going to bring today's program to an end. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. You were wonderful. This program is adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club Forums on IdeaStream is made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.